This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
There's a lot of talk right now about the Epstein Files. Every time the Epstein story comes back into the spotlight, the same pattern repeats. The headlines focus on politics, and the core issue, the exploitation of kids, and the adults who may have looked the other way gets buried. These new emails are no different. They raise serious question about who knew what and when, not about who wins an election, but about whether our institutions are capable of honesty when powerful people are involved. For years, this case has revealed one uncomfortable truth. The system protects adults with influence far more aggressively than it protects children who were harmed. And until we face that, nothing changes. So today, we are stripping off the politics. This is about right and wrong. I'll say right now, every person that we are talking to today, any thing we're talking about, everyone that's discussing this, whether the person is right or left, the people we're talking about, whether they're right or left or center or whatever, if they had something to do with this involving children, they should go down. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I don't care if it's someone I voted for, you voted for, everybody else, whatever. If you're involved in this shit, gone. No questions, well, their policies are this. I don't care. Your policies don't matter anymore because you're a monster. Transparency versus secrecy, accountability versus protection, and what these new emails actually mean for an investigation, an investigative and behavioral standpoint, not what anyone wants them to mean. Joining us is retired FBI Special Agent and former Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke. Let's start at the beginning. The thing that, the big headline, I would say, as of right now, as these emails are coming out and people are digesting them, Epstein himself in the emails claiming Trump knew about the girls. From an investigative standpoint, what are the possible interpretations of that? Because knew something was wrong is very different than knew exactly what was happening. And in no way, shape, or form is that any way pulling back the curtain or saying, well, let's forgive this a little bit over here. Or like Megyn Kelly, somehow questioning if an adult is into a 15-year-old, that not being a pedophile. That was an insane comment. That's not at all what we're saying here right now. Let's talk about this specifically. And Trump knew about the girls. That's the allegation that is in some of these emails. Direct words of Jeffrey Epstein. Your thoughts?
So first off, I think it's important, and you just did a great intro, Tony, to talk about the political, non-political side of this. And first off, I want to kind of caveat this with, if you're hoping, if people hope to hear something when something news breaks, that means you actually have a bias, because you want to hear something that's going to confirm what you want to hear. So when you hear something, because this is my reaction to when I saw this break, my reaction is, oh, I hope I hear this. I hope I see this. I hope we learn this. My reaction is always oh, that's curious. I wonder what's in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder what this means for the investigation. And so when I saw these emails break, my first reaction was, let's see if this leads us to new leads, new information that we don't already have, because my investigative hat goes on based on a behavioral observation that, now granted, here's the other thing too, a convicted pedophile trafficker of girls, so zero credibility, that plays into it, says that someone was winning. Because then the first thing I do is I'm looking hard at, does this give us new information? Does it give us new leads? Or is this just tell us more of what we already knew? So that's the first thing I looked here. So Trump knowing about girls, okay, let's see if we got any new leads we can do and new leads we can cover. So that was my first reaction, was, do we have anything new we can start doing something with?
Sure. And it's I'm not in any way trying to make this about Trump. Obviously his name is being brought up in these new emails, which is interesting. It's part of the equation now. If it's there, he's there. And that's what we're trying to break down here. And I know a lot of people, and I think this is key. You have to deal with the facts on how they come, and what are the facts? What is reality on reality terms? And you're exactly right. I think the thing that people need to be cautious on here, because people get caught up in their own politics and this or that. And again, not trying to make this about politics at all. But if you already don't like Trump and you hear these are coming up, people are just salivating for information that's going to say he was doing this or he was doing that. Well, guess what? We don't really have that in a lot of these emails. We don't. But we do have mountains of shit over here that are pretty bad, that do point to awareness of what may have been going on, and a whole bunches of other shit with other people. So if we're just going to keep jumping on the train over here and going, well, what about Trump and the girl? Like, well, there doesn't appear to be a lot about that. But there is a mountain of shit over here. How about we focus on that rather than, if you want justice, if you want people to be held accountable, go after the areas where that can actually happen. Let's talk about those areas, not just keep throwing platitudes and hopefully something sticks over here. There's nothing that's going to get you discredited faster and shut the conversation down as if you keep jumping on information that doesn't exist or keep claiming there's information that doesn't exist right now and keep trying to throw it out there. You're going to get shut down. And then no one's going to take seriously the other mountain of shit that you're not looking at. There's a big mountain of shit here. And that's what we need to be talking about.
Because the real goal of this entire thing is because I really don't see, unless something, because if you just look at the arc of this investigation and you look at the arc of other investigations with high profile people, the likelihood that we're going to see anything at this point, especially the amount that Trump has been under investigation for so many things for so long, the likelihood of them coming up with more things that are going to implicate him or potentially even anyone else, unfortunately, at this level is pretty low, because we would have been aware of it already. There would have been indictments already. There would have been grand juries already. So we're just not seeing it. But what this gives us more things for, this mountain of shit, which is, I think, the really root cause and root thing we should be focusing on here, is this victim-centered transparency. You know, because this is what actually, it's our attention on this. It's our ability to focus in on, yes, it's not illegal, the things that are just disclosed, but what it is completely unethical. It's completely abhorrent. It's completely, turning a blind eye because you don't want to get involved. So it's our ability then to make the victims the center of attention so we can force the transparency, not because, again, prosecution-wise, it's low, but what we can do is we can start changing laws. We can start changing statute of limitations. We can start giving people counseling instead of giving it to the instead of to the perpetrators. I mean, because instead of handling the perpetrators of these crimes with the kid gloves, let's take care of the victims. Let's make sure there's never victims again, because I think it's these kind of dialogues that force that kind of transparency where they also feel safe. Because I did such a deep dive on this one again, looking at the numbers. Again, we only have 4 of the victims out of hundreds that have actually spoken up because of fear or whatever else went on. Yeah. And then I also looked at this too, Tony and Stacey and Todd. The likelihood of, and this is why I say the likelihood of more coming out is so low. And here's why. I looked at the number of, because I know FBI agents that have been fired, that had quit. For whatever reasons, when the new administration took office in New York City alone too, and across the DOJ, since as of yesterday, during this administration, I think 5,500 DOJ current staff are gone, fired, bought out, or quit under pressure. 30 plus FBI agents fired, 3 plus executives ousted, 90 plus prosecutors fled DC U.S. Attorney's Office alone. Maureen Comey, who was recently fired, was also the head of this investigation. So out of all these people, I'm telling you, if there was something in there that a disgruntled someone fired that knew something would be able to share and shed light on, it would have come out.
But isn't there just a level of fear? This is such a hot case. There are so many powerful, very powerful people attached to this. At the end of the day, don't they just step back and go, I need my pension. I need my family to be safe. I need all of these things.
So in all these cases, those things are already gone. So fear does play into this, but then we can look at other cases that it didn't play into that were actually, so you have Bill Cosby, you actually have Weinstein, Diddy. I mean, there's been a lot of very similar cases at that kind of level. I think the network of this is much greater, obviously. But there's other cases of, again, all I'm doing is trying to bring a flashlight to shed light into dark places to understand why we're not seeing more when we know there's so much abhorrent behavior that was witnessed and the reason why we're not seeing it is because I think fear always plays a factor into human behavior and why they're making these decisions. But when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at past cases, the arc of probability of them being some bombshell coming out is pretty low because for whatever reason, I'm just saying it's low.
And I don't know that it's supposed to be a bombshell or is going to be a big bombshell where everything is just neatly packaged and here's what it is. I think this is a slow drip. I think it's insidious. I think it's a lifestyle. I think it's a way that they lived their lives and how society functioned for decades, if not centuries, and it slowly crept into a world where it slowly became unacceptable. And there was half that are like, this isn't okay. There's half that are like, well, this is just kind of how we do things. Yeah. And we're looking at that intermingling, woven area where they're both kind of there. And we're more over here now, where there's not as much of it, but there was a level of it, but it's not just all a whole. And I think that's why we see these little pieces here and there, and why you have, I think it's death by 1,000 cuts, but these are big cuts, every single one of them, and they involve big people, every single one of them. But all of them have different reasoning, different motivations behind the people who are covering things up. Some people covering things up out of fear, some people covering things up out of ignorance because they truly believe that there's nothing going on here. And some things, people covering them up out of shame, out of God. I lived in that world for a while, and it seemed like this was okay and normal, and maybe they participated in it, and they're like, that was really fucking wrong. But if this ever comes out, this is absolutely horrendous. So you have all different motivating factors as to why people are not talking about this. But I think as a consensus across the board, we can look at this and go, there's shit being covered up.
Yeah.
It feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like it. And that's the problem. That's the challenge of it. It feels like it. And I guarantee it is, because this thing is so, just talking about it makes you feel so deflated, doesn't it? And here's why. Because when you read Jenna's book and you see emails and statements like this, and you hear Epstein's statements, Maxwell's statements, and you see the normalization that it seemed to have had, and whether it's in this Epstein world, Weinstein world, Diddy world, it's at high level when you start having this kind of power and control because of financial resources, the normalization of abhorrent behavior really, it strikes you at your core of, if this is the dream that people are trying to achieve and chase, well, who the hell wants to chase that? I mean, it really kind of resets and recenters your own personal compass too, I think, of what we pursue as individuals in humanity, because this is not what we chase. But again, well, it shouldn't be, but that's why I'm the glass half full on this kind of stuff, as you all know, is that I am celebrating the courageousness of those that actually are calling, as Tony said, bullshit on this and saying, hey, let's full transparency. We got to protect and allow those people to feel safe that actually do have the information. Because at this point, more prosecutions, it's going to be a challenge because the friggin' law is protecting them.
And I don't even care about, I do care about prosecutions, but I don't think that's even the goal of most Americans at this point.
Yep.
It's expose these fuckers for who they are. Right, left, center, I don't care.
So we can't vote them in anymore. So we can't have them lead us. Yeah.
So they can't function. So no one's going to spend money with them. So whatever they have, whatever they're going to live off of, fine. And if we can prosecute them, great. If we can't, great. Whatever. But they need to be stopped and they need to be exposed. And this needs to stop being a norm and something that the rich and the elite and the powerful hide behind. And this is not, and in no way am I saying like this is a common normal thing for most rich and powerful people. I don't think it is. I think you have a small sect where this shit goes on, and that's an even weirder, darker sect of society that does exist. But it's not certainly an across the board statement of people who are wealthy, who have worked their ass off to get there. There seems to be two paths that we go down here on this. You have either basically dismantling everything or dismissing everything because they're going to say Epstein's a liar. Is he? I mean, on some things he is, and other things he's been pretty blatantly honest to his own detriment while he was alive. And then you have people just believing everything because it fits a narrative of where they want to go. And the reality is, truth is somewhere in the middle of all this. And that's where, I think everyone needs to be very cautious as they get vitriolic about this information as it comes out, because you don't want to stake your camp in an area where, well, this seems like where I thought I wanted to camp. Yeah, but turns out it's not as fertile ground as you thought it would be. But here's the bigger camp over here that really needs some people at it. Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of shit here. It may not be exactly where you think it was going to be or where it's going to land, but we have to deal with reality on reality terms. And there's a lot of reality that's starting to come out.
I think the volume of people that are witting of what was going on, who did see girls running around, it's huge, because you can't have, potentially 300 to 400 girls that were trafficked, if not more, that weren't witnessed by all the people that he was touching base with, because this is what he did. This is what he normalized in these people's lives. And so, yeah, I think that's what I think is, because I know people say people are covering up. I think this is very, very much like the Diddy case. People that you would think would, on the Diddy case, would come and scream, say, I saw this. All of a sudden we had silence because of fear, because of at what level do you say I was witting or non-witting? And if I was just, see what I mean? People have start rationalizing their own rationalization of it. Yeah. But transparency.
Well, and I want to hit this right away, because this is the comment that we always see all the time in this conversation. Yeah, Bill said it right here. Yep. Why didn't the Biden administration release the information? Nobody can answer that. I can, because they were covering it up.
Yep.
That's why. Why isn't the Trump administration releasing it? Because they were covering it up.
I think both sides have been covering this for
That's
decades.
your answer. So, when we try to lead it down this path of political vitriol, no, it's not. Because they were covering it up. They shouldn't have been. They were. Everybody has been. All the way back to Clinton. All covering it up. Not necessarily because those in power or that the president, maybe, who knows, sometimes they may have been involved, but because there was too many other powerful people in their ether, in that bubble, that they were protecting for whatever reasons it was. Not an excuse, but that's the reason. They were covering it up.
So again, it's the powerful people protecting the powerful people. And I think what happened is this web is so big and it touches so many people that no administration could walk in and go, well, this needs to be released. They're going to go, oh, we're going to be in trouble.
No one can go into this conversation with a team and say, or a team that is Team Biden, Team Obama, Team Clinton, Team Bush, Team whoever.
Right. Other than Team Human.
No, none of those can be on your team, because all of them failed at this. Every single one of them from every party. So you have to go into this independently and go, yeah, you all failed. Every last one of you. 100%.
I've said it before that either we protect children or we don't. So either you're all in that we need to take care of kids from the beginning until they're 18, which means feeding them, getting them food, protecting them from predators, or we just don't. You can't do some of it and not all of it.
So again, I keep going back to Jenna herself in Nobody's Girl and the things that she said in that book. She became, to me, I got my goosebumps and I'm getting misty thinking about her. She was one of the most courageous people in this entire thing. And I've seen it in a lot of places, because she had the courage to say where she failed. And even though she didn't fail because she's a victim, she felt like she failed because she helped bring in other girls, right? So what we need So here's my challenge to anyone that was part of this. Fucking man up and say, all right, I did it. I was part of this, and I'm going to take you all down with me.
Yep.
You know, because I mean, what all it would take is one person, because you're right. It's either none of this happened or it happened across the board, because that's the only behavior pattern we hear here is, and again, Jenna said it herself in her book, that didn't serve her any good because she is gone. That is the greatest credibility you can have, is that she got nothing from this. And she, in her book, was non-political whatsoever. It was across the board. It was scientists. It was researchers. It was presidents of universities. It was politicians. She didn't distinguish between left, right, and it was just everyone. Anyone, because think about this. Epstein was a pure soul ripper, not a human being, nothing. And so he did not have a political affiliation either. He was trying to service only himself by compromising everyone in every position, so no one could line up. So think about this. He could not create a team that could be against him, a party that could be against him, an oligarchy that could be against him, a university that could be against. He had to compromise everyone in order to be successful, and that's exactly what he did, and we're seeing the downplay of it now, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a argument of us against them in terms of Democrat versus Republican or Republican versus Democrat or whatever. This is morality versus immorality. And that's the two sides. Which one are you on? And that's really what this is about. And when you start getting into the gray areas of, well, they covered up for this or covered up for that, and like, well, that's immoral behavior. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you were doing the horrible things to the women, but if you were part of the immoral behavior, you gotta own up to it. And so, and whether you knew at the time or not, but you gotta own up. You gotta be honest. Here's what happened. Here's how I saw it at the time. Here's what reality is. This is horrible. It is what it is.
Step up and do the right thing.
And not all power corrupts absolutely. And what I mean by that, and we all think it does, because I'll tell you, just reading her book and being part of looking at all this horrendousness, you're like, oh my God, I might as well just live in a socialist society because anyone that's got power just corrupt. No. I just finished reading Ryan Holiday's recent book on wisdom. It's the last of the 4 virtues of the Stoic philosophy. And I've read all his content, and he leans left. He's very open about it, and he does a good job of going through here. And he promotes Elon Musk and his how great he was at certain things, and then he goes into how he's completely downfalled because of how he treats people and how narcissistic and self-centered he is. He says the same thing about other politicians. And then I was thinking, well, he's just being politically sidelined here, but what he then does next is, and this is Robin Dreeke's half full connotation of this, he then goes through history. And through history, which he does a great job of, he highlights the people that did have wisdom, that did have power, that were not corrupted. I mean, we look at the Warren Buffetts. We look at Marcus Aurelius, probably one of the greatest of all times that we look at. We look at the Benjamin Franklins. We look at the Leonardo da Vinci's. We look at the people through history that did have the influence, that did have the power, that did have the innovative, creative spark in them to change societies. And a lot of these people we're mentioning here did until a certain point as well, until they're corrupted. So it is possible to be in a position of great leadership, of a great influence, and that kind of power, and not be corrupted. And that's why we do things like this, to hold that full transparency for these victims, to hold people accountable. So, because without that, loving critics, which I think us as a society is for our leaders, we are their loving critics. And hey, dumbass, stop doing stupid shit and hurting people, because only when you do that do you hold them accountable, so that this crap never happens again. Can you imagine?
100%.
We are talking with Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, about what's going on, the new Epstein emails that have been dropped. There is certainly more that continue to come out, and it is a prickly place right now, trying to break it all down and trying to see things in a clear light, one that is not shadowed by the optics that we all have in our own opinions on politics this way or that way. It's looking straight at the facts of, if someone did this, whoever did this, no matter what side you're on, obviously it's not okay. and it needs to be called out, and they need to be exposed. In some of these emails, Epstein also calls Trump a dog that hasn't barked. I found that an interesting phrase, and I don't even know how to take it. I'm curious from a behavioral standpoint what your take is on that, Robin.
Yeah, so it shows a lack of closeness. It shows his typical objectification of individuals, and also shows he's not an insider in his tight circle. It looked like he was in Epstein's mind that he was a pet that was able to be controlled from his standpoint, in that viewpoint. So it's I think the way he regarded Trump, calling him a dog like that, is probably how he regarded absolutely everyone, with the exception of maybe Maxwell herself. Other than that, I think that just gave him insight, not necessarily on Trump as an individual, but how Epstein saw pretty much everyone.
And everybody was a tool for him to use.
100%. And that's why he went cross, because he wasn't trying to ally himself with Trump or with Clinton or with Bill Gates or with the prince over in the UK. This was all about servicing him. I mean, and you can see it with how he regarded all the girls. Yeah. He thought this was exactly how people should be treated. It's the sickest, mind-blowingest thing when you read that book, to see how he saw people. He didn't see him as people, because remember, he's not a person himself. So how can you view anyone else as a person when he's not a person? Remember, soul ripper. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Inhuman.
And he was able to live in an ecosystem that never proved him wrong. I mean, even when it did, it handled him with kid gloves because of the information that he possessed on so many other people. That's why he had such a slap on the wrist the first time he was indicted and arrested for his crimes. And then he comes back out, and then he's like friendly with all it. It's like, I compare it to R. Kelly in some ways. Just as society treated R. Kelly, where we knew what he did. There was video of him violating a 14-year-old girl in his bathroom in front of his Soul Train award. And everybody's like, well, maybe it's not him. I want to step in the name of love at my wedding, so I'm going to go with that. And that remix to Ignition, that's a pretty hot jam. You got to admit, all that stuff over here, him with the 14-year-old, this is how society treated R. Kelly, and he had a huge career even after all that came out. And Epstein was able to essentially do the same sort of thing. It wasn't in spotlights and music videos in the R&B world. It was the rich and powerful and the elite that still felt safe enough, just as music artists felt safe enough to go and do a duet with R. Kelly after that shit, to go on tour with him after that shit, because the public said, nah, we're okay with this. So the rich and the powerful continued to have relationships with Jeffrey Epstein even after they knew the allegations against him. And the DOJ says there is no evidence that Trump participated in Epstein's crimes, even in some of Epstein's own writings. Epstein even says Trump didn't get the massages. Now, you may not like that. It may not go with the narrative you want. I'm not a huge fan of him personally. I don't care if you are. You're entitled to that opinion. It doesn't fit the narrative that I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to hear this. But I'm okay with that because it's reality on reality's terms. There's a lot of other shit here. There's a difference between no evidence of participation and no ethical concerns at all. Those are two different things. And they're very different in terms of what is prosecutable or not. Can you speak to that, Robin?
100%. We've said that on this show numerous times. Just because it's not legal, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's ethical. We've seen this all the time. I mean, in this case, especially going all the way back, and you hit it, his lack of... his lack of, he was prosecuted back in the early 2000s and convicted, and he got a slap on the wrist. Yep. That slap on the wrist he got says more about the sentencing guidelines and the sentencer, the prosecutor in this case, who wound up going on to serve even other higher places in our government, says more about them than it did about Epstein. And the fact that, again, the brazenness of the normalized behavior is what was really shocking for so long. And that's what I think is just so, because the behavior never changed. He was never changing his behavior. Even after Prince Andrew, he didn't change his behavior. None of these people change their behavior because there's zero need in their own minds from what they saw, from the power they had, from the compromising information they had. And I don't even think they thought necessarily about compromising information, because that would be thinking too hard. They were just being who they were, which is these abhorrent people. So, did I cover the question? I don't even remember. I got sidetracked.
I think you did.
I'm going to talk about, the victims themselves, and there seems to be a fundamental crack in how one sect of our society is looking at this and how another sect of our society is looking at this. And I don't know any better way to make an example of this other than what Megyn Kelly said just the other day. And I'm kind of shocked by it. The only thing I could think, and I hope she comes back and walks it back and says, look, I misspoke, because we all misspeak. It happens. She's human. We're all human. She equated there's a big difference between, and I'm paraphrasing here.
It's bad.
Well, there's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, and that she's really close to somebody that knows almost all the details about Jeffrey Epstein, almost all of them. Not everything, because nobody can, but almost everything. And that Epstein was into the barely legal, like 15-year-olds. And this is what she says, 15-year-olds. And things like that. And they're not 5, they're 15. And just kind of moves the conversation along as if that's okay, as if a 15-year-old, as if an adult interested in a 15-year-old is not a pedophile. Like that's what was insinuated. At least that's what the conversation seemed to convey. And I hope to God she just fucked up her words and that she didn't realize how that came across, was caught up in the interview, was moving on to the next topic. I get it. I do interviews too. I get it. You kind of, you're playing ping pong here, back and forth, and your mind can move very fast. And I hope to God that's what she meant.
I hope,
but
so.
I don't know if it is or not. But even if it's not, there is a good sect of society that will look at it that way. That, well, she went through puberty, so now she looks like a woman, so that must make it okay. And there seems to be some weird acceptance that people are like, well, he wasn't diddling 5-year-olds or allegedly, but it was 15-year-olds, so that somehow makes it less bad.
They're close to the age of consent. They're
somehow makes it less bad. Like, no, it doesn't. They're both children.
My only response is read the book.
Yeah.
You see the impact of that action, and besides, when people say things exactly like that, you sound exactly like Epstein. That's exactly what Epstein said. That is exactly word for word what he said to rationalize his abuse of little girls. He said, well, in some societies and some time frames in history, this was completely acceptable. If you go to this state, it's this. The age of consent is this, and age of consent is over here is this. And besides that, I don't remember if I'm almost positive, I can't be 100%, but I'm almost positive that a lot of the photos he had was of girls younger than 15.
Yeah.
So, rationalizing, abusing girls, I don't care if they've been through menopause. I mean, not menopause, if they've been through puberty or not yet. It's stupid. You look at
what? Yes. Why is this even coming out of her mouth? Why is this even why is there even any rationalization going on? I mean, it's not rocket science to say someone looks physically different than at 15 and 5. Of course, yes, but it doesn't in any way, shape, or form make it more valid or less or more of a temptation to justify that an adult can prey on that person with less consequence because she looks more mature than a 5-year-old.
And I'll tell you what, the way Epstein did this and Maxwell did this, I don't care if they're 15 or 25.
No,
right. They were manipulated.
The book.
Exactly.
They were trafficked. So this is a big problem in our society. Tony, you and I have covered cases like this before with serial rapists, because that's exactly what this is. So when you get a certain part of our society where girls start getting trafficked like they did at this age, they are trafficked all the way up until they friggin' die.
Yeah.
And right up into their 20s, 30s, if they live that long. And the psychological destruction of that human being, it doesn't matter if it's 15 or 25, they're being trafficked, they're trapped, and they get trauma bonded, they get guilted, they get shamed, and they get manipulated the hell out of. And so it doesn't matter if they're 15, 25, 30, that was an abuse and enslavement, because that's what trafficking is. It is enslavement. Well, they say, and then here's what I say to because I get it. If you never touched it, tasted, or felt it, where you got really close and really gritty in the minutia of the impact it has on the victims, you don't get it. Read the book. It's got, to me, I've been harping on this one. This is like mandatory reading for anyone that is truly trying to understand the impact that this inhuman individual like Epstein has on human beings. I don't care the age,
from the start, years and
it's even worse at that young age. But it's because remember, Jenna, she died in her 30s, and she's still traumatized by this. All these girls are. It didn't.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
There was a comment a couple of days ago. Somebody had watched us talking about this, I think a week ago or a week and a half ago. And they said nobody chained these girls to the massage tables, or they weren't locked up or something to that effect. And I wanted to comment back, and I stepped back and I went, this is a person who has not seen somebody who's been traumatized and manipulated and trafficked. There's so much fear around this. And Megyn Kelly making that comment, it's so cringeworthy, because how many victims are out there going, well, I was going to say something, but wow, we're normalizing this behavior that, close enough.
Wrong. Yeah, it was Megyn Kelly having a conversation with another female too.
Yeah, and that just
like, what
supposed to be able to go
are we on?
You're supposed to be able to go to Robin. Was it you that said find a person with children that's a safe person?
Yeah.
Yeah. A discussion that we had about if you're out in public and you're looking for somebody to go to when you're in trouble, it should be a woman who has a child?
That's why I'm it's hard to imagine she's not going to retract that in some way. I mean, she's a mother.
I hope to God.
At this point, I'm sorry. At this point, I don't normally get involved, but Tony, you said, sometimes when you're interviewing, you're trying to get to the next thing. On this topic, if you are a skilled interviewer, you are very careful about how you handle that interview. And obviously,
especially with sensitive
she was not. And also, that's when your true self comes out, are in those moments. I will say that till the day I die.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you're too close to the fire, when you're too connected to these individuals from a political standpoint, which she is, you're human. She's human. And you're going to be influenced one way or another. And the modality of going down a road trying to somehow rationalize the number 15 and putting that number out there, picking that one and saying that is somehow acceptable. There's like two roads I think you can go down here with this. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you protecting this? Or is there some sort of rationalization and something else going on inside that individual that's trying to make sense of their own trauma and trying to normalize some sort of horrible shit that went on with themselves? And I'm not saying I have no fucking idea what her history is, what her story is. I hope to God she didn't suffer through some sort of shit like this, but that's the only other modality I can think of that someone would be trying to rationalize some sort of shit like this to somehow soften the blow of their own trauma that they are trying to deal with themselves. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I don't know the answer, but I'm trying to give some grace here because it's so fucking out there, but everything is so out there right now.
I don't want to give grace because Todd brought up a very good point. We prep before we come on the lives here. We do our research. We write up questions. We lots of research. Robin probably more than anybody.
Prepping. It's just fucking common sense. You don't say, like, unless you're going to say, why would you even say that? It's not like you're just like reading like if you're just reading your prompter and this is what's coming up, then you're a shitty interviewer.
Well,
but even then I'd be like, I read my prompter in front of me and I made the questions. And sometimes I'm like, I don't like how that's worded. I'm going to change this.
I went in and rewrote my questions before we got started. So
70% of the questions I ask are not pre-made.
Yep.
I mean, it's I don't know how that comes out of your mouth if you're a sane human being.
I still can't get over though. I don't think it matters even if it was 15. If any of these girls were 20. So
yeah.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still wrong. They're still trafficked. They're still enslaved by these people. All I can keep saying is read the book. Read the book.
Yeah.
You know, I've covered these cases. I've covered my own cases where people have done abhorrent things, but I've read journals of the bad guys. I've never read anything by the victim.
Yeah.
This was a victim's transparent journal of her life and what happened to her. I have never in my life read something like this. It gave me, and I view myself, hopefully, and other people too, as an extremely empathetic, caring individual that champions the rights and the liberties and the mental health and wellness of absolutely everyone, especially children. I have two. They're my life. They're everything in my life. And this book, so matter of fact, my daughter, it was my birthday this past weekend. As y'all know, my daughter came home for my birthday and she had one of her friends come. And her friend, my daughter is bragging a little bit, say, hey, you know, my dad does true crime stuff with Tony Brueski. And she goes, oh, really? And the girl said, her friend says, I'm reading Nobody's Girl. And I'm like, oh my God.
Did you two just talk for hours on this?
Yeah, but I said, and she just started, I said, and I cautioned her. I said,
yeah,
this is a powerful book, but I said, you got to tread lightly, touch your toe in that water, because this is powerful stuff. Because that's the impact this book had on me. And I'm telling you, for anyone that makes a comment like that, if you read the book and still make comments like that, you need some counseling.
Yes. I don't know any other way to slice it. I really don't. And I don't know. I just
And as a
don't know.
woman, it's incredibly disappointing that
I
she
think that's
would
why
say
we're trying
that.
to give grace too, because I'm shocked because of knowing a little bit of her background, a little bit of what she went through, why she left Fox and having kids.
Right.
You know, I'm like,
look, they watch our show. They've reached out to us before on guests and stuff. And, you know, I respect her as a journalist, but I saw, I'm like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
Seriously, Megan, step back, retract that shit.
It's a moment.
Please.
I'd welcome her to come on with us and explain what she meant.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just, my head is spinning on this. I can get political differences. We can have different opinions and view things this way, but what the fuck was that? Yeah. This is 1,000 times more vile than the stupid shit she got fired at NBC for on the Today Show. I mean, this is just like, what the fuck? This is like fundamentally weird. There's reports that agents were told to flag Epstein records that reference Trump and other powerful figures. People are going to have this in their mind, and it may be true. It's reports. You've lived inside that world. You know, what kind of what does that actually mean? Are there things like this that happen? Are there things where it's like, okay, we're going to go through this, but if you find this, we don't need to know about that.
Not on that angle of it. So remember, I come from a world inside the FBI where I saw I understand the background. So a lot of times when I'm shining my flashlight in the dark places, I know some people get angry sometimes, but I'm just telling you like the bureaucracy works and why there's certain things and how we did certain things a certain way, yet when it grabs the public eye, it's easy to say, well, it's cover up or it's this or this. No, I'm just telling you how the bureaucracy worked and why. And this is one of those cases. There was numerous cases that I worked or instances throughout my career where we're told, hey, go through all your interviews, go through everything, go through all your files and find anything related to this. We were never told to do anything in my 22 years with the FBI to find it so we could cover it up. Mm-hmm. We were always told to find it because we had to disclose it. And if we couldn't, and I'll tell you, the threat of reciprocity, if we did not find everything and was later found out that we didn't disclose it, was massive. I mean, we'd be put under an OPR for that.
Could that be used in reverse though, where it's like, okay, your job, go find this, and you don't know that it's necessarily you're disclosing it. But what's the purpose of disclosure? I mean, is it to release it publicly? Is it to be part of the file, or is it to find this so we can redact this?
I was just going to ask about redacting. Is everything we're going to see redacted?
Like, find it. We need somebody to find it.
True.
But there's a reason for finding it. It's not to like shine light. It's to let's sweep this away.
In every single case I've ever had, every single I can't name them all off the top of my head, but I think there's at least 10 to 20 times throughout the course of my career where we were given a bureau-wide blast, find anything related to this. Mm-hmm. And we're always told why, and it was always because we have a congressional mandate, there's a FOIA request, there's something. So we were always told the reason why we had to find this information and how and where it was going to be going. But the likelihood, again, because I just go to laws of numbers, for someone to collect all that information to cover it up, I don't know. That just doesn't work because there's too many people who would know it. So if someone put out an all call for information, the likelihood that that's an all call to shove it in a corner someplace, slim to none, because it just wouldn't work. Just the human, again, look at all the people that were fired. Look at all the people that left. There's just too much. There's too many holes in that bucket to be able to fill to be able to do that effectively. The other thing that came up and it'll come up sometimes too is if for high level people that we're investigating or have to interview, because I know a lot of times someone has to be flagged that, hey, say we have to go interview. Like I've been part of this when my buddy was doing insider investigations and leak investigations. I mean, I was very close to guys doing this, where we have to go interview the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of War, whoever he is now, or the president or members of Congress or anything. And what happens in those cases, very similar to these, is they get flagged, not flagged because they're going to be treated special. What typically happens, at least in all the cases I've been involved in, there can be outliers, but 22 years I'm involved in a lot, and I didn't see anything that deviated from this. And that is, these people get flagged at this higher level so that you can bring an executive with you at a similar rank with the investigator. So what happens is, say Robin Dreeke, I'm a GS-13 journeyman level as a special agent. It is my case I'm operating. Say I have to go interview the Secretary of Defense, or say I have to go interview a member of Congress, a senator or something. What will typically happen is that an executive from headquarters, that's a senior executive staff member, in other words, they have the same sort of civilian rank inside the FBI as this individual, will come along on the interview with the investigator who's actually doing the interview themselves. Why? I don't know. It's protocol, but it's never an influence type thing like I've been part of anyway. Typically, the executive will sit there, a small chit chat, and then and they'll hand it off to the interviewer, and the interviewer goes. So that is typically how it works, at least in my 22 years.
I want to throw this out there because this is kind of an observation I made yesterday. And sometimes, with time puts things into perspectives. You kind of go, oh, I didn't quite see it that way. I feel that way when I watch Dateline a lot. Even when I watch Dateline on stories that I already know really well, it's like, oh, well, when you kind of put the pieces together of the puzzle like this, new things emerge and new ways of looking at things emerge. And I don't know if I've just been blind to this the whole time. I mean, Epstein's death in itself in 2019. Obviously, a lot of people, myself included, I don't buy that he killed himself. I don't think that occurred. The fact that you don't have any cameras, that there just happens to be all these oversights that would have been able to prove that, in fact, he did it himself, don't exist, and this didn't work right. Bullshit. Like, he was killed.
It's what me say a outlier of probabilities.
Yes, it is 1,000%. Okay, so we had that. We had, and the thought process was, powerful people had him killed. I don't think anybody said specifically it was this person that had him killed. It was that, probably a collective, maybe one that had the insight or the power to do so. But now we have perspective of these emails, and we see the dates of these emails, and we see who they were from, and who they were to, and what they were discussing, and when, and what. And there happens to be a lot of shit about Trump in them. And again, not Trump that he was doing things with the girls, but that Trump had a lot of leverage, or that Epstein had a lot of shit over Trump business dealing wise, professional wise, enough that could destroy him professionally, could get him in trouble financially. Just a lot of shit. And that's the mountain of shit over here. And it's interesting because he's talking about this in these emails. He's talking about delivering this information to Russia. He's talking about having this information and being able to hold it over his head. And then suddenly Jeffrey Epstein dies while Trump is president of the United States. Maybe. I wonder who had him killed.
Oh, God, here come the black SUVs.
I think
they're pulling up now.
The challenge.
I'm not saying it was him. I'm just saying I wonder. Because you put things in certain places, you go, this is curious.
So with all the emails that are able to be coming, I think about 2,000 pages or something like this. Here's what I think. I think that list of people that could have done that is so long.
Yeah,
it is. And this is just another one, but it's like all these emails line up where it's like talking about disclosing shit to all these.
I will go down the conspiracy theory path with you, which I never, ever do. If we're looking for a pattern of behavior from past conspiracy theory conjecture, the only one that really fits a pattern, Clinton.
I was just going to say, or Clinton.
Right?
Or Clinton. No, you're exactly right. You are exactly right. Without a doubt.
People have died in Clinton's wake. I mean, there's a circle there.
You're right. No, you're right. And this is about dealing with reality on reality's terms.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter who you like, whatever. It is reality. There is a track record there. If you believe those conspiracies of a lot of the suspicious deaths around the Clintons. And there's a shitload of them.
There are.
And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So yeah, I would say the email evidence with Trump also rather curious. I don't know. I am saying I wonder, but it's another set of data that leads up to person with power, with information over a lot of people that suspiciously dies right at a crescendo of where this person is at the height of their power to expose you at one of your most vulnerable times and the most powerful time in your existence. And that's what Epstein held over Trump at that moment in time. He also held it over the Clintons. He also held it over a ton of other people too. So I don't know. I mean, I'm literally throwing it out there going, I don't know, but that's a new observation.
So here's what I'd be doing if I was the investigator and had access to all this thing as a behaviorist. Because again, I just look at the behavior and I look for patterns. So we have a pattern of at least one individual known, convicted, and dethroned of Prince Andrew, or just Andrew Windsor, whatever the hell he is, right? So I would take that as a baseline of someone who is very witty of what was going on at a high, powerful level. You then take an overlay of how that communication goes, the words, usage of the back and forth, and now we have a profile of someone that was on the inner circle, inner knowledge, who is corrupt. All right. We then take that as a baseline of what we're typically looking for the types of communication, language used. But did Epstein refer to him as a dog or not as a dog? I mean, any kind of little clue you can get. You then take that as the model and you overlay it with all the other people that had email communications with Epstein and see what stands out from that baseline of normal. Because there's going to be a lot of just routine emails that are going to be baseline. And then you're going to see the Andrew one. It's going to be a spike. We're going to take that spike, take the profile of that one and see where it overlays with everything else. And that just gives you, all right, we have some smoke. Now we got some big billows of smoke. Let's go investigate these big billows of smoke and see where this leads us. And that's what I'd be doing as the investigator is like, I have a known entity. Now I'm going to model that that known entity and see who else might fit that known entity and see where we need to investigate further. Because again, I'm not saying yes, Trump, no, Trump. I'm saying my conjecture is that Trump is one of emails that probably sound a lot like a lot of other emails that he was talking about. That's because and it might not be, and it could be an outlier, but we don't know if it's an outlier or not unless we have a baseline of how Epstein communicated with a lot of people. And that's what I would like. That's what I'd like to see. I would like to see who stands out.
It's another it's a chessboard, and Trump is one of the pieces on that board.
Yes, one.
And he's one. And that's the I mean, he happens to be the one that's in a certain place of power right now. At the time some of these things were going on, of what he did or did not have knowledge to, he was at a very different place on that chessboard. And Epstein is the one who's the player. He's the one who was playing the pieces, and all the way up to his death. And it appears as though some of those pieces on the chessboard somehow got a mind of their own and found a way to kill the person playing with them. How many of those pieces? I don't know the answer to that question, but that observation, I think, is one to note in terms of timing. There's so many questions that are still left unknown. The fact that we don't have a lot of these files yet, with tons of these emails are dropping, and they're going to continue over the next, probably for the rest of our lives.
It's like New Year's Eve.
You know, but the reality of it is, and I'm going to ask you this, Robin, why should the public trust anything that's coming out? In any of these emails or any of the Epstein files or any lists or this or that? There's been plenty of time to redact whatever needs to be redacted. There's plenty of time to delete shit that needs to be deleted. There's plenty of time to do all of this and all of that to create a public ready version of it. And all the government has to do is say, well, it encroaches on national security, so we're not going to tell you these names of these certain people. And it very well might encroach on national security because of people being compromised for these very reasons. But at the same time, that uncomfortableness, that possibility of a national security risk protects the people simultaneously.
Yeah. I would just go down the road of, does this make sense behaviorally that this would act like this way? But where I'm not looking for things that are going to be that I don't believe, because we're going to see tons we don't believe and that we're going to be skeptical of. What I'm looking for is an individual, an organization, an institution that does this. They say, in further review, we got this wrong. We made a mistake. Here's what we now know. And when they share that information, if it's not a good look for them, yet they still have the courage to share it, I'm paying attention to those people. Mm-hmm. Because people that have the courage to say, I made a mistake, are the ones that have a lot more credibility than anyone else. Because everyone else is saying, not me, not me, not me, and they're pointing over here. Those are the ones that I never believe. Wholly, because there's a lot of rules of human behavior. One, we're all going to act in our own best interest in terms of our safety, security, and prosperity. For ourselves and those we care about. That's what we're seeing right here. People are acting out of fear and their own safety. Here's another rule of human behavior. That is the greatest thing when we're looking for assessing trustworthiness in others. We are all working on something. All of us are incredibly flawed. The people that have the courage to share their flaws and share where they're vulnerable and say, here's where I'm a little broken, but here's what I'm doing about it. Those are the ones you can trust, because those are the ones saying, I am broken. I'm not perfect. Everyone else around us, they're all saying they're perfect. Don't believe them. They're not.
And there's self-awareness, which so many of these people seem to not have.
Namaste.
And that's,
Namaste.
without a doubt. All right, we solved the world's problems again.
We
Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Your current book, Unbreakable Alliances, available wherever books are sold. Go check it out. As always, invaluable having you on. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here. There's a lot more to come on this topic. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of these conversations wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Your comments are certainly wanted and needed. YouTube is where you'll find us. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Until next time, for Robin, Todd, and Stacy, I'm Tony Brueski. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.